that we are standing on are the finest physical example that remain of the plantations. These walls were built to protect, to defend the empire's interests. And during the construction of these walls, the king himself changes the city's name to Londonderry. The controversy has raged for over 4 centuries. The Catholics have refused to call the city Londonderry and still call it Derry right up until the present day. But it's important to explain that period of history, because if at the end of this tour I was to take you to visit a very good friend of mine by the name of John Henderson. John is 72 years of age. He's a retired civil engineer here in the city, and during the course of a cup of tea you said, "John, you've been living on this island of Ireland for the last 72 years. Why do you see yourself as British and not Irish?" John will take you by the hand, as he's done with me on many occasions. He'll take you into his lovely little study. He'll open up his family tree and he can pinpoint May the 23rd, 1619, when his ancestors arrived from the lowlands of Scotland during the reign of King James I. And he will tell you we're still loyal to the crown right up until the present day. By the same token, if I was to take you to visit a very good friend of mine by the name of John Doherty from the Bogside, 75 years of age, a devout Catholic man, he will very simply tell you we were here first. That's the end of the story, ladies and gentlemen. Goodbye. Can you sense the historical conundrum we're in? As a result of something that happened here 400 years ago, we have 2 tribes who sadly have not been able to assimilate with each other and who still claim ownership over this land. I wonder, in particular as a father of 3 small children, what is the legacy we're going to leave our children here? And I truly have become convinced that the only way to end all of this trouble and strife now and in the future, in my opinion, is to have all our children doing things together, be it through education, through music, through sport. My very simple philosophy is the Catholic and Protestant child goes to school together. I think they might like each other. Dare I say it, they might start dating, and God forbid marry each other. Wouldn't that be a catastrophe? Are we all ready to march? Yeah. You don't say yes here, you say aye. And above the door you'll see the Roman numerals MDCXE 1690, which is the Battle of the Boyne, but also the site of the original church. This one itself was built in 1777, and the columns were added in the early 1900s.
Say it away.
But just to give you some sense of their influence, I know you can answer this question. Can any of you tell me who was the first Catholic Irish president of the United States of America? All previous presidents of the United States of America with an Irish connection were not Catholic Irish, but Scots-Irish. So to within a 65-mile radius of this city, you have the ancestral homes connections of people like Andrew Jackson, McKinley, Madison, Buchanan, Wilson, Grant, Monroe, Arthur were all Scots-Irish, as indeed were people like Stonewall Jackson, Thomas Mellon of the Mellon banking empire, and a man that I've become very fond of since I discovered him in recent years, a wonderful singer-composer, often seen as the father of American music, a wonderful soul by the name of Stephen Foster. Dream of Jeannie, beautiful dreamer, Hamptown Races, Suwannee River, my old Kentucky home, hard times come again no more. His great-great-grandfather James left from the banks of the River Foyle. Are we all ready to march? We're standing on a gate here which is called Butcher Gate, and what I'm trying to get you to visualize now are the walls, in the sense that if you were a bird looking down on top of these walls, basically what you'd see is a rectangle. You'd be able to see all 4 original gates. After the slaughterhouse for animals. Right across you have Ferry Key Gate, down to the left Ship Key Gate, and up to the right to Bishop's Gate. I do think it's worth considering the War Memorial for a minute, because very moving memorial over there to commemorate all the thousands of Catholics and Protestants who died fighting side by side together. I might add, fighting for the British Army. Yeah. During the Second World War, when many thousands of your Allied servicemen and women were here, what did the Catholic and Protestant community do? we set aside our differences and we united again behind the Allied cause. I don't want you to take this the wrong way, because I'm obviously only saying it tongue-in-cheek, but I do get this historical feeling that we almost lamented the ending of the war here, only because when the Allies left, the jobs left as well. You can imagine every time we said goodbye to a naval ship, we were literally saying goodbye to the economy. In 1943, the unemployment rate was as close to 0% as you'll get. By 1968, at the outbreak of our Civil War, the unemployment rate was truly out of control at 25%. I only give these statistics because I'm utterly convinced. In fact, I think it goes without saying, a more economically stable Northern Ireland will surely mean a more peaceful Northern Ireland into the future. I get this sense that when the economy is good, we've all got jobs. We tend to forget about things for a little while. But it is amazing when the economy starts to go down the pan. The tribal problems can start to raise its head. The anger sets in. The blame game starts, and things can really deteriorate very, very rapidly. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, you can see the lovely hills of Donegal over there in the distance, where my dear wife, Sharon Ann Mary O'Sullivan, is from. What currency do they use over in Donegal? Euro. Yeah, so you buy a cup of coffee over in Donegal. The taxes will go to Belfast and down to London. I only tell you, actually, I'm not sure if you're aware, but 9 out of 10 of our petrol stations, gas stations, have all closed down in the city here. And the reason why they've closed down is a very simple economic reason. Cheaper over there. Because of exchange rates and taxes. It's actually been, on average, 25% cheaper to get your fuel across the border in the Republic of Ireland over the last decade. I only tell you this because I get this feeling now that there is no loyalty to Northern Ireland when it comes to filling your cars up with gas.
It comes to money. It comes to money.
Catholics, Protestants, and I'm ashamed to say Buddhists have all succumbed to the cheaper fuel price. Actually, the only reason why I tell you this, and I'll tell you this story as we're walking down, I had a group of academics here 4.5 weeks ago, and they were all from different parts of the world. One of the lead professors was from a place called Buenos Aires in Argentina. Now you're going to truly have to forgive me my Argentinian accent, it's not very good, but the conversation goes like this. Ronan, you may not know what happens for the future for Northern Ireland, but I have my theory. Would you like to hear it? And I said, of course, Professor. He said, my theory is this, that in 2 to 3 generations' time, you here in Northern Ireland will have a referendum, just like Scotland. He said, however, unlike Scotland, I think that the people of Northern Ireland will vote to separate, and there will be a united Ireland. I said, Professor, how did you come to this conclusion? And these were his words, not mine. He said, Ronan, the Catholics are breeding faster than the Protestants. It's hard to argue with that. Actually, the interesting thing was that the professor was looking, he'd been in Belfast at the wonderful Central Library, and he'd been looking at population censuses. And there's no doubt about it that within maybe 2 or 3 generations, remember that this city is predominantly Catholic, but Northern Ireland is predominantly Protestant. But his theory is that within maybe 100 years, the Catholics might be in the majority. Now, the only disagreement that I had with him was that I do get this feeling, however, that our future, even if the Catholics were in the majority, that doesn't necessarily, in my opinion, mean that there will be a united Ireland, because I think economic issues will also play a major role in how people will ultimately vote. Finally, a very famous lady landed here in 1932, the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic. Her name was Amelia Earhart from Atchison in Kansas. And on the 21st of May 1932, she left from a place called Harbour Grace in Newfoundland. Her intended destination was a very romantic city called Paris, but luckily for us, she ran out of fuel and landed here in this city. We always say we had nothing to do with her subsequent disappearance. Just like the Titanic, she was fine when she left here. The Irish get blamed for everything, don't they?
And they started playing the Titanic.
Where are you from? Oh, wonderful. Yeah, wonderful. Do you know we have a very famous Irish playwright by the name of Brian Friel, who sadly passed away recently, but he wrote the most beautiful play called About the emigration from this area to Pennsylvania.
In Ireland. Yeah. One of the places we live in hotels.
And when they play football on the streets, they're playing football with Catholic kids, and it's reciprocated in the Protestant areas. And so a lot of kids here are not getting the opportunities to mix with each other on a frequential basis. And for me, no matter what side of the fence you're on, that's problematic.
Yeah.
But if I could just finally say that I do get a feeling, particular today, that a lot of our problems are not really religious anymore, in the sense that for me they're more social and economic. That wherever you see our divided areas that still are maybe still troubled 18 years after the agreement, they tend to be in the most socially and economically deprived areas. And there's a wonderful poster in my children's primary school of a wonderful young woman by the name of Malala Yousafzai, who was shot by the Taliban, if you remember. But there's a lovely phrase beside her face which very simply says, "Arm the children with education." I think it's a wonderful phrase, because for me actually that's really what it's about. I mean, there are vulnerable children all over the world, but it's trying to get these kids a good education, so it gives them wings, it gives them confidence, and indeed they're less vulnerable to joining these extremes on either one side or the other. This gate, ladies and gentlemen, is a gate which is called Castle Gate. It's a new gate. By new, I mean 1803, new in relation to the rest of the old city walls. It's also really to try and get you to visualize that in the 19th century, particularly mid to late 19th century, the city was expanding outside the walls. We were at one time very prosperous, through shipbuilding, through linen, through engineering. So these gates were added as the city was expanding outside the walls. Castle Gate 1803. This street running parallel to us is called Magazine Street, after the ammunitions magazine. And you also have a new gate down there called Magazine Gate 1865. But I'd like to take you, and again, sort of continue that positive theme, ladies and gentlemen, because I want to take you through this area here called the Craft Village, which is meant to look like a city in the 19th century, but it was only built in 1992. And most importantly, last night's beer bottles. I want to take you through the Craft Village to really kind of highlight, ladies and gentlemen, the regeneration, the rebuilding. And this was an area which was rebuilt from the ashes of the violence by both Catholic and Protestant young people. And it was opened by the ex-President of Ireland, Mary Robinson, in 1992. So we go down the steps there, ladies and gents. You'll notice we've
for the podcast. That was supposed to be here. Yeah, they do, but they charge you when they do, they change themselves. So you don't know what it is. Because
gather on. I'm going to say nothing else.
That's why we came over here.
And all I can say is that that is come. I'm broken my marriage.